Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. You and the boys want to go and take a vacation to the beach. Only one problem. The enemy's already there. How are you going to get to the beach? You'll need a landing craft like this one. No matter how much the enemy's defenses are beaten down by the shore bombardment of, like, say, your Iowa-class battleships up here, or airstrikes from carriers like this one, at the end of the day, to take that position from the enemy, you have to put your own troops ashore. We've talked a lot on our channel about Battleship New Jersey being used for shore bombardment and naval gunnery support and that sort of stuff. But when they're conducting one of these amphibious operations, how did the troops get there? The answer in a lot of cases is the LCVP Higgins boat, or landing craft, vehicle, or personnel. Believe it or not, during World War II, amphibious operations are a pretty brand new thing. The whole idea of making contested beach landings isn't really done much in history. Despite what you might see in movies like Troy, where Achilles and the Greek army is landing on the beaches of Troy, and Paris and the Trojan army is contesting it, and there's a battle right there. In reality, that just doesn't happen much. Usually, you're landing your troops somewhere completely uncontested, because that's the only way to do it, and you're occupying a beachhead there. Even things like the Gallipoli landings in World War II, the initial landings were largely uncontested, and the actual resistance doesn't start until both armies get there to the beach a little bit later. But during World War II, you see both in the Atlantic and the Pacific, these conquering nations building up beach defenses to prevent the enemy from landing successfully in the first place. And since this is a new type of warfare, there wasn't really any doctrine that existed on how to do this. As with many things amphibious, the Japanese actually had a lead on the Allied powers during World War II. Their Second Indochina War had required them to make landings, and so they had created the Daihatsu landing craft, which was one of the earliest purpose-built landing crafts ever designed. Future Marine Corps Lieutenant General Krulek, who at the time I believe was only a lieutenant or a captain, was stationed in Singapore during some of the Japanese landings, saw the Japanese landing craft, thought about some of the exercises that the US Navy, Marine Corps, Army had been doing during the interwar years, where they were planning for these sorts of contested beach operations, and thought, well, hey, that's a really spectacular boat. At the same time, the Navy has come out of these exercises and decided that they do need a purpose-built boat, a landing craft of some sort, and they start trying to design one, and what they come up with isn't all that great. It doesn't even win their own competition. But Andrew Higgins, a lumberman and boat designer from New Orleans, has been using flat-bottomed boats for operating in the shallow coastal waters around the bayou of Louisiana, and he takes one of his early boat designs to the Navy, and the Navy likes it. It's flat-bottomed, it's relatively mass-producible, it's relatively cheap, it's relatively light. The LCVP here, which is commonly known as the Higgins boat because of its designer, Andrew Higgins, or perhaps more accurately, the guy who owned the shipyard that designed and built these. They designed a boat that's about 36 feet long. It weighs about 9 tons. This actually makes it very, very comparable to the fiberglass boats on Battleship New Jersey today. The Liberty Launch, the Admiral's boat, so those are all in roughly the same size. The boat has a coxswain who's driving, an engineer who's keeping an eye on the either 225 or 250 horsepower engine, depending on which model it is, and then a bowman and a sternman. It can also hold up to 36 infantry, roughly a platoon, or a 12-man squad, and a Willys Jeep. And that's why it's LCVP, landing craft, vehicles, or personnel. It can do both. Now, what we think of as the traditional Higgins boat is actually the third generation of craft used for this assignment during World War II. Obviously, we didn't come to this excellent design right away, and we would actually have superior generations of designs by the end of the war. It's really incredible over the 4 or 5 years that the United States is participating in this war, just how many iterations the country's able to go through, and there are over 23,000 of these built. So the first version of these, I'm not going to repeat all the acronyms, I hate acronyms, I can't remember them. The first version of these is essentially a flat-bottomed boat. It's a traditional boat with a pointy bow and gunnels going all the way around the sides. So it's great for being able to drive right up on beaches. It's a good first step. However, it has a major issue. That is, there's nowhere for the infantry to disembark. They have to roll over the sides of this craft when they get to the shore. You know, they're loaded down with all their equipment, so that's no easy feat. They're potentially under fire at the time. These boats are made out of wood primarily, which means they're cheap and easy to mass produce, but also not particularly resistant to gunfire or artillery, both of which tend to be present at contested landings. So this is when the future General Krulek and Higgins get together, and Krulek is able to point out that having a bow ramp would be extremely useful for being able to disembark troops. So there's an early version of this built with a bow ramp. There's a couple thousand of those made. They're really just a prototype for the definitive LCVP Higgins boat that we all know and love. Any war movie with a contested amphibious operation probably shows something that's attempting to be these, something that's portraying itself as this, if not an original one of these or a replica of one of these. While these are great, they're mass-produced and they're used in basically all the amphibious operations in 43, 44, and 45, and some even earlier than that. They're not perfect. Again, they're wooden, they do have some armor on them, but they're not that resistant to bullets or artillery. While they've got a flat bottom and they can drive up on a beach most of the time, a lot of the coral atolls that the US is invading in the Pacific has like a ring of coral reefs, and even with a draft of just 2 feet at the bow, 3 feet at the stern, these boats would still get caught on those reefs going in, which caused the troops to have to disembark there and then wade ashore. The bow ramp opens up facing the enemy machine gunners, and so that didn't offer much protection. Later versions of amphibious craft would be either treaded so that they could drive across things, so be true amphibious craft, and then drive up onto the beach. Or they'd have ramps on the back so this could beach facing the enemy, and then troops can come out the back where they're relatively protected. Probably my favorite fun fact about the Higgins boat is you're more likely to see the sailors manning the boat be Coast Guardsmen than Navy sailors. With the number of ships that the US Navy was putting into service, they needed all the manpower they could get. The Coast Guard gets absorbed into the Navy during World War II. So it is a separate branch, but instead of being under the Department of the Treasury like they were pre-war, they become sort of like the Marine Corps, in that it is separate and distinct, but it falls under the Secretary of the Navy. Plus, the Coast Guard has a lot of experience with small boat operations. So you get sailors with small boat experience to operate these craft, and it works out just great. And to this day, the Coast Guard only has one Medal of Honor recipient, Douglas Monroe, and he was killed earning the Medal of Honor driving a landing craft. It wasn't an LCVP, but a similar landing craft during the Guadalcanal campaign. I've never come across a traditional plastic model of a Higgins boat. There are probably some out there, but I've never run into one. So for today's video, we're modeling the Higgins using Kobe bricks. Kobe is a longtime sponsor of this channel and makes a number of other ship kits, including many of the ones you can see on the wall of ships behind me, as well as these other sets right here. The Higgins boat is part of their D-Day series, which they released this year in honor of the 80th anniversary of the D-Day campaign. However, you can use the Higgins boat for any of your amphibious operations needs. It's also the 80th anniversary of Leyte Golf, and these would have been present there as well. Got to get a little Douglas MacArthur minifigure to step off of this, recreate that famous picture. So this one comes with a display base that has the name of the craft on it. Comes with a functioning rudder. You can see that the propeller is protected back here in a tunnel. That's for when it runs ashore. So really good model there. The ramp actually actuates. As you turn this, it pulls it up. Hard to do when you're holding it with one hand. And the engine compartment opens up. Look at that. These are fantastic toys, but also fantastic teaching tools to be able to give a young person, preferably one who's interested in both building things and history, and they can put this together and see what made this craft so successful, so dominant that it's still in the public memory today, even though we haven't done a contested amphibious operation in a long time, and the types of hovercraft, landing craft that we use nowadays are nothing at all like this. This is still what we think of when we think of that sort of operation. Be sure to check this out, along with the other sets in the D-Day series, and also check out the Historic Ship series if you haven't seen that already, at buildkobe.com. Supreme Allied Commander and later President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, called the Higgins boat one of the most important tools for winning World War II. Despite some of the shortcomings I brought up in this video, I believe that that's true, and this would be on my list of top 5 most iconic vehicles of World War II, top 5 most important vehicles of World War II. You name it, the Higgins boat is probably on my list. Its mass producibility, its cheapness, the fact that it's made out of wood so it's not taking materials from other critical wartime industries, makes this a really, really vital part of that new amphibious doctrine that was developed for the new type of warfare fought during World War II. What are some of the other vehicles that you think were critical war-winning tools, weapons, however you want to say that? Let us know in the comment section down below. What do you think is a design innovation like this, a vehicle that contributed more to the victory in World War II? I'd love to hear what you have to say down in the description below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals. In particular, we're thankful for Build Kobe for sponsoring today's video and sending us the Higgins boat to build. Remember to check out buildkobe.com. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about the channel and the museum. Thanks for watching.